It's Monday night. Welcome to Monday Night Comics. Only on Comics with Dan.
Welcome to Monday Night Comics. I'm Dan from Comics with Dan, and tonight I'm going to have a special guest with me, Ian Mondrick. He sent me a book about the art of his father, Joseph Mondrick, called Mongoose. I'm really excited to talk with him, so he'll be joining us in a little bit here. So we'll get started with a little bit of what I read over the past week. Past 2 weeks really, because we didn't do a stream last week, and then we'll talk to Ian for a little bit and then talk about what's coming on after that. So we will start with my list. I gotta split it up here. Okay. So, what I read last week, starting with Batman Superman World's Finest number 35. So, I have been like the biggest fan of this book like since it came out. If you've watched, any other shows that I've put on, as well as if you've watched any of the other shows I've done or listened to the Comics Commute, follow me on League of Comic Geeks, all of those, I talk about World's Finest a ton. So this is the start of a new arc. It's a story with Aquaman. And so I'll grab this solicit here for a little bit. So distress call from Atlantis brought Batman and Superman below the waves. But so I mean, I'm going to be honest. So, having just read the Aquaman solo series, the first issue of that, I'm trying to remember sort of the differences here, sort of what came out from World's Finest and what came out from that. I do know that I believe that. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So in this issue, we get an appearance from the Floronic Man, which I'm a big fan of because I'm a big fan of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Fantastic. And so I really like that we're getting to see this. And I believe that Swamp Thing is going to end up showing up in a later issue. I'm pretty sure if I go to the next... Oh, shoot. That's not what I wanted. I think that Swamp Thing is going to be in the next issue. Yes. Look at that cover. That's a gorgeous cover. I'm excited for that one. So the combination of Swamp Thing and Aquaman isn't one that I had really thought of before. But I think it makes sense, if you think about it. I mean, Aquaman has this attachment to obviously the sea, all the life in the ocean, and some of the green that Swamp Thing sort of has that attachment to, that he's sort of built into it. It does bleed into the ocean, right? And so I would imagine that there's some overlap between those two. Something I haven't really thought to explore, and I think that's going to be good. I know a lot of people are feeling a little concerned about how this book is doing without Dan Mora, because obviously he was a big draw on the original issues. But I mean, Adrian Gutierrez he's doing a fantastic job. I think that his art, I guess the best way to describe it is he gets, some of his characters get these like sort of goofy looking faces, and it's definitely an intentional style choice, one that I enjoy it. I think it adds some lightheartedness to the book, which is what Wade and Moore were trying to do from the beginning. So I like that. I think that might be where they're losing some people, but that's fine by me. I think that this book's still going strong, in my opinion. I mean, Gutierrez is doing a good job. Wade's still writing really well. I mean, I'm happy with how this book's going. This has absolutely no risk of falling off my pull list at all. So, all right. I also read. We'll talk about Nightwing first. So Nightwing, I actually put this on my list of top books for 2024, even though this is only the third issue of Nightwing, of the Dan Waters and Dexter Soy Nightwing to come out. I just think that they obviously have such a strong direction going for this book. It's truly, I mean, Dexter Soy draws. First of all, he draws a fantastic Nightwing, just to start with, right? I mean, he's so dynamic, and he reminds me a lot of the way that Jim Lee approaches sort of the Bat family, and that is highest praise, because I think Jim Lee is quite possibly the best to ever do it, in my opinion. But this Nightwing run is such a good balance of sort of Dick Grayson being like socially aware, the way that that Tom Taylor was trying to kind of get across, but also like not forgetting that it's a superhero book. So like Chuck Dixon did. So it's that really good balance of that dark and gritty, yet current with what's going on in the world. So I can't speak highly enough of this. We get to see some of my favorite things about Nightwing books are the flashbacks to when he's Robin, and that we get some of that here. Dexter Soy draws an unreal Batman. I mean, I kind of think that maybe he should be on a Batman book as soon as possible. I would definitely, that would kind of be an automatic pull for me, honestly, if Dexter Soy got onto a Batman book. But I think, I mean, this was another really good issue. I thought it was fantastic. We get a little more insight into what's going on with Olivia Pierce and sort of how Dick's half sister and Maggie Sawyer, how they kind of like play into that, right? So we get some more insight into that. I think that this is actually issue number. It says part 4. I guess this is the 4th one, because we had started at 119. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So it's moving along nicely. It's you can tell that stuff's getting built up on top of the base story that's happening. I don't think it's kind of hard to say whether or not this whole spheric solutions, these militarized cops, are if they're any relation to this puppet master. I don't know if we just have sort of two things going on at once, which I mean is perfectly fine, or if they're going to be related somehow. I would honestly be fine with either one, but I just really like that. And you know, you don't want to compare it too much to the prior run, right? Because they're different runs. You don't want to feel like one can be good and the other can't. Like there was lots of good stuff about Tom Taylor's run. But to be honest, it's a little difficult not to compare the two. I mean, Tom Taylor's run, one of the biggest issues I had with it was that he took this heartless, overarching story and he didn't really give it the attention that it needed throughout. And it didn't feel like it was being built up properly. However, this Puppet Master is definitely, I mean, he's present. He's around. Dick doesn't know it yet, but he's around. And now that I mention it, I said it a minute ago that I don't know if these two are going to overlap. Something happens in this issue that confirms that they definitely overlap. The militarized cops and the Puppet Master. So yeah, I mean, this one is highly recommended. I mean, Dexter Soy, like I said, phenomenal. Dan Waters doing a great job here. So yeah, overall really good one. I have to go back a few here. And Space Ghost. So with all the stuff that's going on, let me see if I can zoom out of this a little bit and get the full picture. Okay. So with all the stuff that's going on with Diamond and the comic distributor, I know a lot of shops aren't getting their Dynamite books because I believe Dynamite still ships through Diamond and they're having all kinds of issues. So I did not get my physical copy of Space Ghost #9. I did get my advanced review copy of it, and I read half of it. I had tried to read it, got sort of interrupted, and haven't been able to finish yet. But it's teeing up to be just a great finish. And so, if you're not caught up on Space Ghost, the Space Ghost is, I mean, obviously, like if you don't know the character, I mean, he's a like spacefaring superhero from the Hanna-Barbera days. Those cartoons. He had a talk show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And so now he has a comic here written by David Pepose, art with Jonathan Lau and Andrew Dalhouse, and letters by Taylor Esposito. It's fun. It's the way that the team has it set up is it's individual issues. There's an overarching story, but each issue stands alone as its own story. So you can pick up really any issue. That being said, there's the occasional two-parter, right? So I believe issues 4 and 5 were a two-parter, and issues 8 and 9 were a two-parter. And I like how they're doing that because the first two-parter was with Zorak, which think like that's Zorak is Space Ghost's Lex Luthor or his Joker. I mean, that's his guy. So you can't do a Zorak issue story in one issue. The Metalis, who is he's the villain for this two-part story for issues 8 and 9. When I talked to David Pepose about this, I had him on prior to issue number 8 coming out, that he likened him to the Bane equivalent, right? And I definitely see that 100%. I also feel like there's a little bit of like Darkseid in there, or like Thanos, sort of that world conquering type of character, but the outsmarting Space Ghost, the overpowering Space Ghost, that all feels a lot like Bane. And so you can definitely tell that David Pepose had Bane in mind when he wrote Metalis the way that he wrote him. So I'm going to finish Space Ghost #9 tonight. I'm really excited about it because issue number 8 ended on something of a cliffhanger, and I'm halfway through issue number 9, and I have no idea how they're going to get out of this situation, which is the best way to read a comic, is to actually feel like the stakes matter. So yeah, this was this was great. I had a great time with this one so far. Very excited to get to the next one. Okay. I hopefully can have Ian join us soon here. If not, then we can move on to the books that I'm going to be reading. While we're waiting for him to join, though, we can talk a little bit about some other things that I read that didn't come out necessarily this past week or recently. So I read the first omnibus for Jack Kirby's Captain America, which fantastic. Obviously, I mean Jack Kirby he's the king. But I am planning on doing a separate review video for that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm going to have a guest on for that review, Taylor from Taylor Talks Comics. If you haven't gone over to his channel, you definitely make sure that you do. He's fantastic. He pulls just some of the greatest looking hardcovers and trades and omnibuses that are out there. I know he likes, the DC and Marvel books, but you get just a ton of indie stuff over on that channel. So definitely check out Taylor Talks Comics on YouTube. He and I are going to talk about Jack Kirby's. He's like the biggest Jack Kirby fan. We're going to talk about Jack Kirby's Captain America. So that'll be coming up here, at any point. Just need to kind of hash out when we're going to do that. That'll be, like a pre-recorded video rather than a live stream. So really looking forward to that one. So that one took me a bit to finish. Obviously that's a big book. So we'll see how that video goes. I'm excited to talk about that one a bit. So I see that Ian has joined. So welcome to Monday Night Comics. Ian, how's it going, man?
Hey, how are you, Dan? How you doing?
Not too bad. Hanging in there. How about you?
I'm good. We got, I don't know where you're at in the US or where in the world you are, but we got a bunch of snow today. So
Yes.
It's one of those days where everything kind of gets shuffled around and retasked because of snow maintenance and all that stuff. So, I guess it's like an eventful day in terms of my normal day, but I guess in terms of someone who lives an eventful life, it's not very eventful.
No. I mean, I get that. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast, so I probably got the same snow as you. So.
Oh yeah, you're wearing a Penguins hat, so I'm assuming you're from the west side of the state.
I lived there for a bit. I don't anymore, but yeah. So, but I'm all Pittsburgh sports. So little sad NFL wise these days, but that's okay.
Yeah. They've kind of, as I understand it, they've kind of fallen from their previous glory, but
yeah, a little bit.
Hey, what are you going to do? It's a lifelong commitment being a sports fan. So
yeah.
So listen, I realized listening to the beginning of your show, I realized that, being so involved in indie comics, I didn't just realize this, but I've been kind of out of the orbit of mainstream comics. So it was really great listening to the first 15 minutes here and listening to you catch up on stuff. Here's the thing that I'm kind of stunned by. I knew David Pepose was writing Space Ghost. Mm-hmm. I just kind of assumed it's not a comedy. It's like a serious action book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's serious. And so there's funny stuff in it, but so I didn't grow up watching the original 60s cartoon. I grew up seeing Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
That show's a joke.
Most people who aren't 80 years old grew up watching that. You know what I mean? I was living on my own and working a job. So the whole Adult Swim thing was like, at night after you got home from like a day of work and you're hanging out with your friends. But yeah, that's the same thing. I was kind of just like, oh, he's running Space Ghost. That's awesome. Like, we're going back to that Adult Swim stuff. No, I mean, like, I think that's more exciting in a way, because I was expecting to grab the trade of this or whatever and be like, okay, like it's goofy humor and so on. But knowing that he's taking like a serious attitude to it is great. And David Pepose is an absolute great writer. I had the chance to meet him maybe 2-3 years ago at New York Comic Con. And this is before I think he got his first Marvel gig. And he's just the sweetest guy and so nice to talk to. And it's so great watching him and so many other people that I've known in comics, like kind of, glow up and get the good jobs, and make a name for themselves. It's great.
Yeah, no, he's got like all kinds of stuff in the fire too. I mean, he's really starting to, he came out with, what was it? It was Savage Avengers, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that was like his big explosion into Marvel, I believe. That and Punisher, he came out with Punisher. And then that was I think the new Punisher, right? Like it's not even Frank Castle, maybe? I think. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but
I also didn't know there was a new Punisher. So again, I'm kind of out of the loop. So I apologize.
It's so hard to keep track of all that stuff. It's really
it's like a soap opera. If you fall out for a couple of weeks, it's like you're just lost. Like it would take me months and a nice recommended reading list from a dear friend to like get caught back up in the sphere of like mainstream comics. But from my vantage point, it's just nice to see, indie people making that step up and, moving on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great to see how much more popular like indie comics are becoming. I think for a long time it was a 2-horse race, and then obviously you have Image exploding in the 90s, but then now with obviously the internet's been around for a while, but it's becoming easier for anybody to put their work out, and so you would think, sometimes that that means you're just going to have a lot of like junk to sift through, but I've found that there's just so much good stuff out there that people just don't have the the word of mouth to get it out or whatever. But I honestly, people will send me stuff just because they've seen my channel, they've seen me on Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever, and for every 10 things I get, I like 9 of them. They're good.
Oh, it's great.
I know it really is. Yeah. So I to be honest, I thought it was gonna, when I first started doing this, I thought it was gonna be the opposite. I thought I was gonna be there's gonna be people that are kind of just getting their feet wet and trying to figure it out. But yeah, good stuff coming out of the indies comic scene.
I'm nothing but positive about the current state of real indie comics, not IDW, but they're independent as in they're not part of the big three or whatever, but real the crowdfunding scene. And I was having a conversation with someone a ways back about it was kind of an argument about music, right? And about Spotify. I use Spotify. I'm allergic to all corporations, but there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so you have to deal with that. But one of the things that someone brought up about Spotify is I or someone else in the group is complaining about how poorly they get paid for their streams and stuff like that. But this was the argument that was made way back in the day, 250, 300 years ago, or whatever. If you wanted to hear music, what did you do? You had to go somewhere where they were playing live music and listen. And then those people made their money by people listening and then paying them, either to perform or tips for, a well-played set or whatever. And, somewhere along the line, it turned into corporations. Record labels own everything. And, when I grew up in the 80s, the MTV era, that was how you find out about new music. It's just whatever's on MTV that sounds good. Or if there's local bands, which were a lot harder to find pre-internet. And you had a couple of corporations controlling the flow of what you got to listen to. And Spotify might not be a wholesome alternative, but the amount of artists I've found in the past, let's say 2.5 years of being on Spotify, and these are bands with 300,000 followers or 75,000 followers. And it's just truly great music. And I do think that in a way it's a great democratizer. Like you get to listen. And I know like they screw with the algorithm and they force feed like Drake or whatever down your throat. But I feel like we're getting closer to, and again, in indie comics as well, it's like, I have an avenue to put my stuff out, whether this is my first attempt, whether it's my third attempt, whether I'm a seasoned professional who's been doing it for 20 years, whether I'm part of like a label like Boom or something who dabbles in Kickstarters and things like that. It's like, this gives you the opportunity. And it's like, yeah, like the first thing I put on Kickstarter was the worst thing I put on Kickstarter. And that was backed by a lot of friends and family, but that gave me the confidence and it kind of gave me the support to start doing more things and branching out. And I really think that's the best thing about indie comics is that they exist outside of the corporate structure. I mean, Kickstarter's a corporation, but again, with Spotify, we do the best we can. And that's what I think is so great about it. And that's what I try to remind myself when I'm backing comics. And if I get something that I don't like, or if I see a campaign that I'm just like, I don't know if this is going to make it, you back it anyway, because what you're doing in some sense is like you're placing a bet on this person's future. I want to help you get this thing out so the next thing that comes out is even better. You know what I mean? And I think like as you said, yeah, there could be a lot of crap, but that's also okay because people have to be able to put out that stuff. You know what I mean? I just think I wouldn't want to do it any other way. I like working with editors, but I hate continuity. Most of the stuff that I write is like one shots or one issue or a short. And, and I just think that when there's shareholders involved in standards and practices and things like that, like you don't get the amount of freedom that you get from doing it yourself. So, yeah, so I'm a big fan of them. And again, like you said, I think it's great that you've had such success with backing indie comics so far. I'm glad you like this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And like, I do think, like, obviously not to like dive into the political side of things too much, but I mean, it's inherent there, but there is a lot of difficulty when it comes to art and capitalism, and that doesn't mix all that well.
Sure.
And so you do get benefits of like I can live with characters like Batman and Superman and Spider-Man being part of that corporation. I mean, like sure. it's just
they're
so
institutions
large
at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that there's a place for other books to come out, that it's just pure, it's art. It's what the writer, what the artist want to express. And they're not held back by like, well, Spider-Man can't do this because,
right.
he did this 40 years ago, and it's a whole thing. So while I like that there's continuity for those characters, I'm glad that we don't have that barrier.
There's something to be said about those kind of institutions being shepherded, right? By like, you've got people who's like, I mean, listen, Marvel's not stupid. Spider-Man's a license to print money. So they want to be very careful and protect that. And well, the same thing with Batman too. But I think that's also it. Like when you were talking about it's difficult with art and commerce. Yeah. Like the intersection there, it can be very tricky. And that was one of the things I struggled with when we were talking about bringing Mongoose to Kickstarter. Was like, I don't want people to see this as like I'm gonna play on people's emotions to try to get their money for a book or whatever, right? And I think that was me kind of like making that more of a problem than it actually was, because the response has been so great to it. But it's nice because this is a thing that could or could not exist, with Kickstarter, right? Like the original plan was just kind of make a couple of copies for the family. And then of course, me being in the mindset of like, I like to create things and put them, and try to get them to a larger audience through Kickstarter. That's where the idea came from. And yeah, it was a little tricky at first, but like the support that I've gotten from friends and people on social and people who've backed the book is just it's been resounding. So there it is. It's just been resounding. So it's just it's been a great time. Oh, and you know what else? I just had some changes made to the cover. So like I just got the updates today, so it's nothing big. I just we didn't put unconventional in the title on the original print, and I changed the font a little bit, but that's it. But I got those today, and I'm really excited about it. So
nice.
I'm about to go into the last week, and I'm like I kind of like didn't post about it too much today because I'm kind of like gathering my energy to like do a full court press for the last 7 days. But
yeah. So yeah, and then so this goes live in 7 days then.
Oh no, it's been live. It ends in 7 days.
It ends in 7 days. Okay, well
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so I'm glad I didn't get
No. Yeah, we're
confirmed,
fine. Everyone's got until Monday night to bag it if they want.
Great, yeah.
But we've already hit our funding. We're already looking for our first stretch goal, or I guess probably the only stretch goal. But yeah, but it's been a really great experience. I've had a couple of people reach out and tell me like what a great idea they think this is. I had an interview a week or two ago with one of your colleagues, Chris from the Long Box Punk, who does a show live on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
And he was telling me that like his father does a bunch of I believe colored pencil drawings, like landscapes and stuff. And I'm like, man, scan that stuff. Like not necessarily that you have to monetize it or put it on Kickstarter, but like it's if you can get like a compiled version of that, that's something that, you know, it's something that's very easy to pass down to your kids and their kids and everything, where it's like, hey, this is like a monument in a way to the artistic flair that my father had, or one of your ancestors had, or whatever.
Yeah. No, and so for anyone watching that that is seeing this for the first time, this well, do you want to go over kind of what this is about and
Sure,
sort of how it came to be?
Yeah, I think I've got a pretty well rehlarsed pitch by this point. If not, what the hell am I doing?
The old elevator pitch, yeah.
Right, yeah. So Mongoose is a 150-page black and white book filled with my late father's art. He passed away early in 2020 from complications due to multiple sclerosis. And I was tasked by my mother to scan like the hundreds of pieces of artwork that he had done throughout his life. I think, probably early on, he kind of realized like he wasn't doing this for any sort of like outward exposure. He was really just drawing for himself, drawing pieces for friends and family. And it just kind of went like unnoticed, a lot of the pieces. And as I was scanning them in, I realized like there's really no difference between like a moldering pile of papers and a flash drive gathering dust on someone's mantle somewhere, right? And I was like, well, the best way to do this is to put it in a book, and like it's on the shelf. You can put it up somewhere, and it's kind of like a complete record of just about everything he's done. There were like 30 or 40 pieces that we decided not to put in because a lot of them were half finished, and a lot of them were like figure drawings and stuff that didn't really seem to kind of pop in the same way. But yeah, it all came together. It's a nice 150. It's like 156 pages. It's a nice, perfect bound soft cover.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, we're really happy with it. We're stoked with the test prints, and yeah, and it's I'm really excited for everyone else to get it. I've had test copies now for like a month, so it's kind of like the new book sheen is kind of off. Like I'm used to having it around. But I'm really excited to like fulfill everything and get all of the rewards, like we're doing, stickers and magnets and prints. And I'm excited to see all that stuff, and I'm excited to see the reaction to it, which is always the best part.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean like I know you said you're worried, you didn't want to say that you were yanking on people's emotions,
right?
But I mean, it's hard not to have an emotional reaction to seeing this, just because the story behind it is it just feels so just authentic and like I think it's so cool that you're doing this and that you're putting it together. And I didn't even know your dad, so
well, thank you.
It's so one of the really like just the coolest things that I saw in the book was, and I think it might be this next slide. This might be one of them. That your dad worked at the post office.
Yes.
Right. And drew pictures in the little boxes that were at the bottom of the form.
Yes.
If you want to, I just think I don't know if you want to kind of elaborate more on that story. That's just such a cool I'm just imagining like seeing all these forms with that little bit, and it's just such a creative way to, as someone that works like a regular like 9-to-5 like desk job, like a cool way to get the creativity in there,
right? Yeah, it's so crazy that you bring it up. I have right behind me. I have a small like portfolio of all of them. because part of the campaign is we're actually like the highest reward tier is one of those original sketches.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was one of those things I was like, I brought it up to my mom, which is always a weird thing when I'm doing this book, and it's just like, well, I had to talk to my mom first, but you know what I mean? It's like I'm 47, I'm not used to asking my mom for permission for a lot of stuff, so it just sounds weird coming out of my mouth. But I was like, this is something that we could do if you were comfortable. And she's like, the post office sketches, and I'm like, yeah, like maybe giving some, and she's like, oh yeah, that would be great. And I'm like, you don't mind not having them? And she's like, Ian, there's like 80 of them. And she's like, I can't hang them all up in the house. Like like my mom's house is already filled with like my father's artwork. So she's like, that's what the book is for. She's like, if someone wants a piece of your father's art, like, yeah, like he can take it. So if you don't mind, if it's not too like uncouth for me to get up, I'll show them to you real quick.
No, absolutely.
All right, 2 seconds. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you can get a sense of what they really look like. I was trying to be a little cagey about this on online because I didn't know. Like, I don't know, like, is the post office going to sue me for using these forms or whatever? I mean, they say copyright 1976, probably not, but yeah, as you can see, like, I don't know if you guys can get that, but as you can see, like, they're like routing slips, and there's like boxes at the top for your name and all that stuff, and then at the bottom there's just a big section for notes. Yeah, there you go. There's just a big section for notes at the bottom, and that's where he kind of drew everything. So they all they all kind of exist like in that kind of shape, and part of it was. Let me see if I can find one, because a lot of them kind of went outside the boundaries of the box. I might not be able to find any here, but for instance, like this one right here, which I probably shouldn't show too long because it's new. But her hair kind of goes outside of the frame, and the gentleman that we got to design the book, Jeremy Heilman, it was kind of painstaking for him to like either include the box or not include the box and like erase a lot of that stuff. But he did a phenomenal job. And it almost, I like seeing them the original way, but in another way, like it impresses me to just see them as pieces on their own, free from all of that kind of formatting. Like they really do look great.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, and
I'm
for whatever reason, yeah. No, for whatever reason, I was picturing them as like smaller boxes at the bottom, but it's cool to see them that they're like large, like taking up a good portion of the page there. And you mentioned that, maybe you shouldn't show that one because of the nudity. The one thing I want to tell anyone that's listening is that any like nudity in the book is super tasteful, right? It's all just in case anyone was at all concerned about that. I didn't have any any issues taken with there
are a couple of nudes in there. There's one that I might say is a little too on the nose in terms of imagery, but yeah, there's nothing like trashy in there. There's no I would agree with you. For the most overwhelmingly, almost all of them are incredibly tasteful. I would say there's one that's maybe on the line, but it would probably hew more towards tasteful. But I consider it an all ages book because there's nothing explicitly sexual in there.
Right.
Most of it's just weird little dudes like this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show too, in relation to a different book, but I'm a big fan of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and Stephen Bissett's art in that. I see a lot of that with your dad's work. It's the intricate lines. It's taking. I mean, this is a picture of someone's face and a beard, right? But there's so many lines that make that up. Yeah. And like that's the way that Stephen Bissett did that in Swamp Thing. And that's what I'm seeing here. And I don't know if you've ever made that connection or not, but it's just something that I saw.
That's what's really interesting too, and that's another thing I'm really excited about is because when I was coming up with the campaign page and everything, my father loved art, and like we went to the Philly Art Museum a whole bunch. We went to the Allentown Art Museum a whole bunch. But most of his favorite artists were like Renaissance painters, and obviously this is not Renaissance style art. So when it came down to like, there's that part where it's like, well, this is a book for fans of blank or whatever. And I came up with, was like, well, it's got some Ralph Steadman in it, that kind of scratchy kind of craziness. And it's definitely got a little bit of, who was the other one I was thinking about? Oh my God, it's escaping me right now. But I gave a couple of examples. And then after I launched it and my mom took a look at it, she goes, oh, you should have put MC Escher in there. And I was like, oh, that's right. And she's like, he did like MC Escher a bit. And then I can see some of that in his drawings. But so that's, I think, the other thing is, like you said, Bissett, and that never occurred to me. Right. But I don't think you're wrong. I think it's a good, and I'm also really excited to see, A, what people think of it, but B, like who they compare it to, or like, what is this like? I for that.
Yeah. And so, cause like another one I see is, Bernie Wrightson.
Okay, yeah. I'm going insane now because I had 3 really good examples, and I can't remember them. I can only remember a Stedman now. I think also Tim Burton. I think there's a little bit of Tim Burton in some of them because, again, lots of weird little dudes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, the Kickstarter, it's until Monday. I'm going to make sure that I throw a link to it.
I appreciate.
I don't know if I already did. Yeah, I'll throw a link to it in the well, I don't know if I'll put it in the chat or in the description, but it'll be placed somewhere people can find it.
Either way, I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was really cool to go through it, and it's like it would be, I mean, a great book to have, sitting out, guests to pick up and look at it, and I mean,
I would like to think that as well. Yeah.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about? You sent me a little preview page of your another project you have going on, Stash Box.
Oh yeah. So Stash Box is the next comic that I'm going to be doing. I think I was originally telling people February, but with the fulfillment period for Mongoose, I don't want to make promises and break them. So I think we might be going for a March launch. But I'm a horror writer, by trade, not on purpose. Everything just kind of comes out that way. This is it is a psychedelic suburban horror story. It's a one shot. It's 36 pages. The book will probably be 44 or 48 because we'll be putting supplemental material, pinups, and stuff like that in the back. But I'm working on it with a German artist, Frederick Hornung, and he is amazing. In my mind, we're dating. We get along so well. I just absolutely love the guy. We have a chat scheduled for tomorrow. I can't wait for it. We talk horror movies constantly, and we really seem to be vibing on the book. And it's absolutely great. I'm so excited to launch it. The only thing that I'm really struggling with is I'm struggling to talk about it in a way where I don't give away too much. Right. And I don't want to describe the theme explicitly. I really want people to kind of experience it, but at the same time, it's I have to give you something to latch onto. But it is about young love. It's about the adult decisions that we have to make as teenagers, like 18, 19-year-old adults, and the incredibly adult decisions that are thrust upon them sometimes, and how that can lead to happy accidents or complete disaster. There's a little bit of LSD references in there and things like that. There's some pot smoking, so it's definitely not an all ages book. But I really like the story. Frederick loves it, and the people that we've let read the script are really into it as well. And I try to approach horror from a different perspective. I'm always kind of interested in coming at it from different ways. I've avoided a lot of tropes, like zombies or werewolves or vampires or things like that. Not because there's anything wrong with them. Nosferatu, one of the best of 2024. But I'm always kind of looking for that unique perspective. I'm looking for that unique thing about a book that draws people into it. So yeah, we're really excited about Stash Box. We'll have a bunch more to show off soon. And I'm sure I'll come calling when we go live with that, so you can check it out as well. But I'm really excited. Keep your eyes peeled for that. We haven't teased too much yet because we're still hammering out some of the look and the feel of the book. But we've got like banging cover artists. We have a couple of really cool people for pinups that we haven't discussed yet. And Frederick's art is just it perfectly captures the vibe and the feel of what we're going for. So I think that's a big thing of horror, is like being atmospheric, right? Is like setting the tone and making sure that people feel what you're wanting them to feel. And Frederick's just doing an incredible job at that. He's really been a pleasure to work with.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but I interviewed Frederick.
Yeah, that's right. You did. Yeah, I did. I watched that interview. Yeah, as well that he's a great guy.
He's fantastic. And he actually told me yesterday or today when I posted that you were going to be on this show, he was like, "Oh, you're gonna have a blast talking to Ian." So the respect that you guys have is mutual for sure. I didn't pull up the
teaser
Stash
image
box. Yeah, but I do have, just so that people get an idea. Yeah. This is what Frederick's art looks like. So that's what you're in for if you go with Stash Box. Yeah, he's crazy. He's
the best. Yeah, we're gonna. I said vampires and werewolves earlier, and Frederick loves werewolves.
He loves them. Yeah,
I've had a vampire story on deck for a little while, and I can't figure out. Like, I have a theme and I have a storyline, but I just can't. There's it's a little too basic, right? Like, I need something to kind of make it fermented and weird, and I haven't gotten there yet. But I know that I'm going to have to do a werewolf book of some kind at some point, just because I would want Frederick to draw it, because I know that they're his favorite. So I'll have to start.
I think he'd be offended if you had another artist do a werewolf book.
Oh, I wouldn't dream of it. I see. That's the other thing too, man. Is I am not by any means prolific, and my last Kickstarter was 2 years ago, and putting 2 out in 1 year is going to be a feat for me. But and I think one of those reasons is because I really want to collaborate with my collaborators. It's not important that we become best friends, right? But I want to work on the book with someone who is as excited about it as I am, right? And also I work from home, and I've got 2 kids, so it's not a lot of adult conversations I get to have. And being able to talk to someone about a project that we're working on together and have us both get excited about it, and that kind of circular kind of a loop of excitement, right? It's just I have some ideas for the story, and he's got some visual ideas, and then we both just kind of get each other and keep each other perpetually excited about it. That's kind of what I'm looking for. That's the magic of making comics for me, is just working with somebody else and collaborating, and just constantly making it cooler by going back and forth. It's just there's nothing like it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's very apparent in the finished product that creators have enjoyed working with each other, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell. Agreed. I read a series from Boom Studios called Crocodile Black.
Oh, yeah.
Which is it's another horror one. You could just, though they were so in sync with each other, that whole creative team. They were just phenomenal, and it showed, because there are times where, maybe the coloring doesn't really fit the pencil style. Maybe the letters aren't quite the style that goes along with the art, or perhaps the other direction. They kind of take too much away from the art. but that did not happen here. I mean, it's really cool to see, everyone get on the same page like that.
Yeah. And I also think when with whatever genre you're doing, I think it's important to pick the right artist, right? Like I think I haven't read the whole Crocodile Black. I've read the first issue and it was phenomenal. And my go-to is Ice Cream Man. I think it's like one of my favorite horror books in recent memory. I absolutely love it. And it's just that Martin Morazzo's style works. I mean, perfectly, 100% perfectly with what W. Maxwell Prince is putting out. And I think Maxwell Prince is smart enough to understand that, because I've read other stuff of his with different artists, and it all seems to have that kind of synergy where it's like you picked the right person for this project, or you collaborated with the right person to develop this project. And it's just that's a talent in itself. You know what I mean? To kind of have that vision. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like you were, even talking about music before is, an album that I've been listening to a lot lately is, and you might laugh, but, F1 Trillion by Post Malone.
Oh, okay.
His country album, right?
Sure.
And the approach that he took to that album was, I'm just going to find a bunch of people that I think are cool and people that I like, and I'm going to make songs with them. Like every single song, it's like famous country people. I mean, he has a song with Dolly Parton. He has a song with, Morgan Wallen's huge now in country. Yep. So, it seems like, he's taking that approach too, to where it's just like, I just want to have fun. I want to collaborate with people that I like, people that I know are good, and so I think comics are like that too, where you want to collaborate with people that you like. I mean, like Frederick. I mean, he's I'm sure you're going to collaborate with him a bunch more times.
I hope so. I'll be, if I'm
just
lucky.
A blast. Yeah.
I just real quick. I'm fascinated by the rapper to country pipeline. Because Post Malone, it's Young Gravy, Shabuzi, like they all started out working in hip hop, and I mean that's only 3 examples, but I think it's also like it's that freedom of being able to kind of expand now, because again, you're not under the pressure of a record label going, all right, you got to move 2 million units of this one, or you owe us $5 million. It's like I'm a big hip hop fan, and there used to be a real, back in like the early 90s, there was a real sophomore slump. Like Elton John said, you get 23 years to make your first album, and you get like 9 months to make your second one. And I think now that rappers are like no longer like, well, I got to come out with another album. It's like, I can just do whatever I want. I can get as weird as I want. I can go off in other genres. I can like start a YouTube channel. It's not just like, well, now you have to do rap for the rest of your life. It's like, you can kind of just branch out. Something that I'm not super interested in right now. Like I'm still like, I'm in my lane of horror, but I think specifically in music, because I think there's less of that. Like, I don't think anybody gets pigeonholed by genre in comics, really. You know what I mean? It's like if Maxwell Prince was writing like a Green Lantern story or something, I wouldn't be like, oh, what's he doing here? I'd be like, oh no, he's probably figured out a really good story.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to imagine. I would love a Green Lantern, W. Maxwell Prince.
I mean, I would like anything by W. Maxwell Prince.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I think that, because I'm trying to think, and I think you're probably right. I mean, you I guess with like the one I'm thinking of that has there's a couple that have a very, very specific style, and you kind of know what you're going to get when you get a book from them. James Tynion the Fourth, great writer. But like he's a writer that I could read a book that doesn't have his name on it, and if it's written by him, I'll know. Like he's got a very specific style. Another one is Josh Williamson. Now he's doing, I don't think I've ever read anything from him that's not a superhero book, but he still has a very distinct style. But that's different than being pigeonholed for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, again, I haven't read much of him recently, but 15 years ago, I could pick out a Bendis book at 300 feet. Like, how many dialogue bubbles are there? Are they big? Are there a lot of them?
That's all you need.
That's Bendis.
That's him.
Did somebody call somebody a Meshuggah? It's like, yep, that's Vegas. Like,
oh man, yeah, that's the same thing with like Tom King. He's another one that like, is it basically just a chapter book with a few pictures in it? I love Tom King though, but
no shade,
he's
no
wordy.
shade to any of those guys. Yeah,
he's wordy, but I do like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's you said you like hip hop, so and this is getting super off topic, but I figure we can do whatever we want anyway. Have you listened to Tyler the Creator's latest album, Chromacopia?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you think of that?
I like it very much.
Yeah,
I think I came on to Tyler very late. I wasn't an Odd Future fan, and I didn't catch up with Tyler until Flower Boy had been out for a little while. So like his early days where he was a little bit more I don't want to say controversial, but he was a little more kind of out there. Yeah, I guess he probably was controversial. But since he kind of hit that, like, well, I'm not just a rapper, I'm kind of actually an artist. I think Igor is phenomenal. And it's one of those things where when I heard Igor, I was like, oh, this is really great. Like that to me is like a beginning to end listen. It's just a really great trip. And when that happens, there's always a little bit of sadness where it's like, oh, well, you've moved on from rapping, right? Like, obviously it's still hip hop, but like, and then he comes out with Call Me If You Get Lost. And it's just like, oh, you wanted a mixtape? We got a mixtape for you. And that just bangs. And then to kind of bridge that gap with Chromacopia, which feels like a little bit of both, I think it's really good. And I think it's crazy that like the best hip hop this year was all West Coast. Right. Maybe not all of it, but definitely, GNX and Chromacopia like were kind of the two heavy hitters in 2024. They're both great albums. And, I was never like a coast specific guy, but I would say my interests, kind of hew more to the East Coast. But did you listen to GNX? Are you a Kendrick fan?
That's the Kendrick album, right? Yeah. I have a playlist. It's not my playlist. I found a playlist on Spotify that is the Kendrick and Drake disses in order, and I listen to that several times a week.
What a time to be alive! As someone who's been listening to hip hop their entire life, this summer was just the best. It was just great. It was a really, really good time. I haven't had that much fun in like watching a hip hop beef since like Ja Rule and 50 Cent. Like this has been it was really, really good watching all that. I'll make one quick recommendation. If you're a fan of GNX, check out, I think she's also signed to Top Dog, Doechii.
Yes, I just started listening to her recently. She's great. Yeah. She's great.
Yeah. If you haven't heard her Tiny Desk concert, I really like Catfish, and the studio version of Catfish is great. But if you've heard the Tiny Desk version of it, oh my God, it's not a different song. It's just also so good, and it sounds so different with like a live band and everything. Yeah. She's like my number one to watch this year. Like I'm really excited for more Doechii.
I don't know what it is about those Tiny Desk concerts that just make everything sound so much better. Like Mac Miller's Tiny Desk concert. Like I like Mac Miller, but his Tiny Desk concert is like his best album. Run the Jewels is pretty good on there. I'm trying to think of like non-hip hop artists that I've seen on there. I can't remember a whole bunch, but like going through that, you just go, holy shit! Like everybody has done these. You know what I mean? And they're also it's a great concept. It's a really good concept. Yeah. It's very cool. Yeah, no, it really is.
What I mean, did you like? So, what do you primarily listen to? Are you a country guy? Like,
I'm real. I know everybody says that they listen to everything, but I honestly like I'll listen to. Okay, so lately it's been I have a few country playlists, and then I have a playlist that has like MF Doom and Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler the Creator on it, and then I also have a playlist with a band called Between the Buried and Me. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No.
That's like
hardcore or heavy metal?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's like progressive metal. So like think like a heavier version of like Dream Theater or something like that. So it really just depends on like I'll go through phases, Yeah. So it's been a lot of like country and hip hop. I listened to the Mask and the Mouse, the MF Doom and Danger Mouse album.
That
I listened to that
Yeah.
very like regularly. That's such a good album.
Back when we used to have CD players in cars, that album holds the record for the longest stretch of time never coming out of my CD player.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was just in there. And it's one of those albums where you're like, oh, I love these 4 songs. And then as you start to get tired of those 4 songs, it's like, oh, actually, I really like these 4 songs off the same album. And before you know it, it's like every track has become one of your favorite tracks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so complete. And it's like, even because like when I start listening to it, like I'll start at the top, and then like you always like a song will start and you're like, oh, okay, I'll listen to this one and then I'll switch it to something else. But I always make it to the end before.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, because I think the deluxe version has like remixed versions of 2 of the songs at the end. I'm like,
yeah, Sofa King and something else. Yeah, but I like the remixes too. Yeah. And also, it's that album specifically is also really welcome to the fucking music channel that we're.
Really, it just changed. That's fine. Yeah, I don't care.
But it's such a great document of Adult Swim as well, because it's like there's a Space Ghost song, there's an Aqua Teen, but there's also like the shows that have just been forgotten by Adult Swim, like Perfect Hair. Like Perfect Hair was something that was in the rotation. Like we'd watch C-Lab, we'd watch Adult Swim, Perfect Hair would come on. You know, Space Ghost was before that or whatever. And it's just like, oh man, like nobody thinks or talks about Perfect Hair at all anymore. It's completely forgotten. It's like, but there's a song. And if you know the song and you know what I mean, and you were around at the time, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But it's
and so I do have a very, like, I think a different look or a different viewpoint of all that Adult Swim stuff, because I'm 33. So
gotcha. Okay. So
I shouldn't have been watching it.
You were trying to stay up late to get Adult Swim. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sitting around with like 4 or 5 friends passing a joint back and forth and like laughing our asses off. But again, like that's me probably just getting myself into like a childlike state of mind to laugh at it. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine, like, because I remember watching like Aqua Teen Hunger Force and being like, what in the world are they doing?
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah, it was so perfect.
So,
like,
yeah.
Being stoned and watching The Brood Witch is just like, what's going on? What the it's just yeah. Always also though, like C-Lab, man. Like the C-Lab was such an interesting idea. Like, hey, I think the story goes, this might not be true, but the story is like a couple of people got fired from Cartoon Network and they stole the original footage of that C-Lab show, and then they just repurposed it to make C-Lab 2021, and then came back to Cartoon Network when Adult Swim was on. And was like, hey, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, sure. And it's like, that just to me is absolutely wild. They're just like, what a great time. There's nothing like that anymore. There's no little group of like weird animation stuff. You're too young for this, but before, or maybe you're too young, but before Adult Swim, there was a thing on MTV called Liquid Television. And it was just like this. It was just like I don't know if it was a half an hour or an hour, but it was on, I think, once a week. And it was like 30 minutes of just cartoons. And occasionally like a really weird live action short. But the big hook for Liquid TV was at the end of every episode, there would be this anime called Aeon Flux, which got made into like a movie with Charlize Theron like a couple of years later or whatever. But it was always like you watched Liquid TV for Aeon Flux. And it was just great. And again, it was all just really weird kind of counterculture stuff that they threw on late on like a Sunday night or something. And you could just really dine on it. But yeah. In a way, that's a lot like it's a lot like the indie comics community. It's just like there's this weird little group of people doing their own thing that exists on like the fringe of mainstream comics, continuity. Yeah. So maybe that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, no. And I mean, like it is, I mean, like we obviously we strayed from comics to talk about, music and TV and stuff, but like it all intersects at some point. And that's what's great about comics is like, I mean, you think about the relation between hip hop and comics. I mean, you have, and I have not read this yet, but I would bet money that you have, but Hip Hop Family Tree by Ed
Oh,
Piskor.
I'm aware of it. I have not read it though. I think I got like
Really? Okay.
I think I got like a free comic book day version of the first issue. Yeah, and
Okay.
it's one of the long list of things where I was like, I'm gonna get around to that one of these days. But
I definitely need to read it. There's this like really nice looking hardcover that they came out with a little while back that I want to try to get my hands on. But
that sounds like my
he's a
speed.
great cartoonist, or he was a great cartoonist.
Yeah.
So, and then also one that I'm really interested in is Deep Cuts, which is a book from Image, written by Kyle Higgins, who does the Massive Verse stuff, Radiant Black, all that stuff. And it's like an anthology series about jazz.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have heard of that. Right.
And I know almost nothing about it, but it sounds
I know very
really
little about jazz.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's one that jazz hasn't been in my rotation for a while. There have been times where it has been, but it's not currently in my rotation. But
right.
Yeah,
but there's definitely an intersection there of weird little guys in music and in cartoons and in comics. Weird little guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, man. Well,
this was an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
This was great. Yeah, if it's cool with you, I want to have you on the show way more often. So
I'll be on whenever you want, man. I'm here.
Yeah.
This is like
Sweet.
I'm spend 75% of every day in this room. So
sweet. Yeah, I mean, you can come on and talk comics, even if it's, we can talk about your Kickstarters, but we can also just talk about comics either way.
Hey man, I would love to. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Hey, thanks. I'll see you later.
See you later. All right. So thanks so much to Ian for joining. That was a great conversation. We got into a whole bunch of other stuff that shared interest that we have that weren't necessarily comics, but we tied it back at the end. So we're all good. Because I am a few minutes over what I usually try to schedule this for, I will briefly mention what I am planning on chatting about, or what I'm planning on reading next week, what I'm pulling. So Justice League Unlimited number three coming out next week, or this week rather, which I'm excited for that. It's going to intersect with the Atom Project, I believe. Yeah, Enter the Atom Project. And so for those not caught up, the end of Absolute Power saw a bunch of folks switch up their superpowers, and so the Atom Project is tasked with finding people that got those powers or people that are missing their powers, and so on and so forth. So it'll be cool to see how that kind of layers into that. And then to close it out, we have Void Rivals, and so the solicit's perfect for this because it says Skuxoid and Pythona, the battle you didn't know you wanted, which is so true because I don't know anything about these characters. I know Skuxoid was very related to, or was in, I guess, Transformers cartoons before. I never remember seeing him. I have limited exposure to the old first generation Transformers cartoons. I do not remember seeing him. So that's been like my very minor complaint of the Energon Universe, is that I don't know a lot of these characters and I feel a little lost at times. But Void Rivals has been one of my books of the year. I think 2 of the arcs, I believe, made it into my top 10 list of the year for 2024. So excited to check those out. But I believe that that's all I have. So thanks so much to everyone for watching. Thanks so much to Ian for joining. And everyone have a good night. Thanks.